Hey everyone, it's Coach Dave March here, and in this episode of the Growth Mindset Podcast, we have our special guest, Oliver. And Oliver is an AI architect. He is a professional when it comes to ML ops. He's saved companies millions in using the different models and stuff that he has. And he also has 4 books. So we're going to learn a lot from him today. And Patrick and I are really going to have a great meeting here where we can help others learn a lot more about how they can use AI and ML to grow their companies. Okay, and we're back. So Patrick, you know, Oliver's something really interesting, man. He's
Absolutely.
he's the kind of person that saved companies millions. He's worked previously in the healthcare arena. And so what we're going to be talking about here is machine learning architecture. And so are you familiar with machine learning architecture or MLOps?
Not so familiar as I guess as far as producing machine learning, but I mean we all kind of we chat GPT. I did a AI video, Kling AI, which I am sure based upon the movements that it does, it probably compiles information on how people move and then transfer that over in its model. So I am a user of it, but I don't know the technical, world behind it. So I am
Yeah.
pretty interested in learning a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Oliver, what is it that you actually do?
It's a great question. So think of me as an architect, engineer, and operator of AI systems. Um, so imagine you're building a self-driving car, not just the brain that makes decisions, but the factory, the maintenance crew, the highway system that lets you work 24/7 without crashing. That's what I do for machine learning. I take it from the idea to a reliable, scalable product,
Mhm.
and I love every part of that puzzle.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And I've been a recruiter in the kind of machine learning pipeline, if you will, going through different pieces of it. And what I've seen is that this ML ops piece is is pretty important. And for those people that aren't technical and that don't really know what that is, can you explain to them why they should care and what it's all about?
I think so. So MLOps is like DevOps for AI. It's the way we make machine learning actually work in the real world. So you can train a great model, but if it's not monitored, versioned, secure, and scalable, it's basically just a science project. So at Optum, for example, we had predictive models that helped prioritize outreach to high-risk patients. And without MLOps, it would have taken weeks to update those models. We got it down to hours, saving millions in operational overhead and driving better patient outcomes. So behind the scenes, we built this using Azure DevOps pipelines and MLflow to manage experiments, versioning, and deployment across environments. Um, the technical things, we containerized models with Docker and deployed them using Azure Kubernetes service and Terraform managing infrastructure as code. Whether it's Azure, AWS, SageMaker pipelines, or Google Cloud Platform Vertex AI, the core principles remain automated CI/CD for ML, reproducibility, and observability, all wrapped in a governance layer that satisfies both engineering and compliance needs. Sorry if
Wow.
I got too technical.
So yeah, that sounds really technical, but also really interesting. Um, when you think about the different AI systems that you built, tell me about the most badass AI system you've built.
Oh man, at the Naval Service Warfare Center, we built a battlefield asset prioritization system that combined sensor fusion, machine learning predictions, and real-time decision optimization. So imagine radar, satellite feeds, mission goals, and AI all talking together to recommend actions faster than a human ever could. Um, but the real challenge was deploying it to the edge devices. So low computer power, high security. I architected the machine learning pipeline to be compressed, encrypted, and self-updating. And the system helped reduce mission risk and resource waste dramatically. It was like putting a brain into the warfighting machine and making sure it never sleeps or forgets. Um, Technically speaking, to deploy this to the edge devices securely, we used ONCs to compress and optimize the models trained in PyTorch, and the models were delivered via encrypted containers over the Department of Defense's hardened communications networks. The system used an internal Kubernetes-based orchestrator, think K3 is on the edge, to manage resource-aware execution and over-the-air updates. And the data pipeline was orchestrated with Apache NiFi, and the machine learning lifecycle was tracked in-house, but built on principles similar to SageMaker pipelines or Azure machine learning with custom integrations for high-side environments. But that was a very cool system.
Sounds
Nice.
like
Yeah. Yeah. Patrick, do you have any questions about that?
Oh no, I was just thinking about because I was in the military, Marines as well as naval. So what you were explaining, definitely, I was tracking through it also. No, I don't have any questions. Just a very
Cool.
impressive system.
Yeah, it's really interesting. But going through all that, Oliver, it sounds like there would be problems that you would run into. Um, like it wouldn't be all smooth sailing. Can you tell me a little more about like the challenges that you would hit?
Yeah, totally. Most problems are technical. They're cultural or infrastructural. So, for example, at Optum, our data scientists were training models in one set of tools, but our production system used something completely different. So that caused friction, bugs, and delays. So I built a hybrid architecture where devs could train in their comfort zone. But everything from the model registry to deployment was automated with MLflow, GitHub Actions, and Kubernetes under the hood. So we went from releasing a model every few months to deploying multiple models per week, all traceable and monitored. That meant faster innovation, of course, and compliance. So,
Wow.
of course, we integrated GitHub Actions to trigger model validation, linting, and testing in every pull request, and used MLflow to log every model artifact with metadata and metrics. Once approved, models were automatically deployed via Helm charts into AKS clusters with built-in rollback and drift detection using Prometheus and custom Grafana dashboards. I also built a cross-cloud compatibility layer so that we could run the same exact machine learning stack on Google Cloud Platform and AWS for different business units. That level of that level of interoperability was a game changer for velocity and consistency.
Yeah, I bet. And when it comes to AWS, I know that the Elasticsearch is really a piece that a lot of the companies are working with. And I like that you have experience with the different platforms, right? And it's not just the AWS, but also GCP. So that does allow you to kind of work in different environments, which can be really great for companies. Um, and so talking about companies, let's talk about the money, right? Let's talk about what
Yeah,
you've actually saved the company.
that's what
Um,
everybody want to
I'd
know.
like to know. I'd like to know a little bit more about the outcomes that this actually had on companies you worked with previously.
Yeah, that's an important question. Absolutely. So at Optum, we used MLOps pipelines to scale clinical models across multiple business units, behavioral health, pharmacy, and chronic condition management. So just the automation of retraining alone cut manual labor by over 70%,
Wow,
which translated to 4.2 million in annual savings.
wow, that's
And more importantly, the models got better, faster, helping us prevent hospitalizations and improve care and support over 200,000 patients more efficiently, more effectively. So technically, the ROI came from eliminating manual ops around model deployment and compliance. We introduced DVC to version training data sets, and every pipeline from EDL to inference was reproducible and rerunnable with a single command. So on the cloud side, we leveraged Azure Synapse Analytics for data preprocessing and distributed training ran on Azure machine learning with auto-scaling GPU clusters. Monitoring latency, model quality, and usage metrics was done using Azure Monitor and integrated into executive dashboards to tie model performance directly to business KPIs.
It's interesting too. The auto scaling piece is really important. I don't think people really understand how important that is too. Um,
Yeah,
as
that's
you're
exponential
as
growth.
you're growing and developing these certain models, it needs to adjust, and the auto scaling ability is really
Exactly.
important. Um,
Yeah,
I
very
yeah,
thought
important.
the piece on when you were talking about cross-platforming, allowing people to work in what they know and still be able to communicate, that hybridization was, very big. It's funny because in the most simplest form, it's like getting PlayStation to talk to Xbox so we can game, cross-platform. So for me, it was like, okay, that really, works out. I wish they did it for Pro Tools and Cubase LE because I do music production and a lot of times transferring files between different producers. I could be working on a piece and then trying to transfer the file in the same, platform in a different platform. We lose work and
Yeah,
behind. So yeah, it would be nice if there were more
absolutely.
things that did that.
yeah, 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 and you know,
Yeah, that,
with
that's a
with us,
good example.
what'd you say?
That's a great example. Yeah,
Yeah,
just there's so many ways where accessing data and files
Hmm.
is a
yeah,
challenge, especially for a company like Optum, which can absorb a lot of other companies and have to
Mm. Yeah.
integrate
Oh man.
the existing systems.
Yeah, because retraining workers, whether you want to do retrain workers or create systems so that the companies you absorb don't have to learn new platforms so they can continue working on what they're already doing. Yeah, that's wow. Yeah,
huge.
that's really big.
Yeah, and talking about infrastructure and all these kind of things, with Terraform, you do have the really an interesting kind of way of using infrastructure as code. Um, so this is all pretty like heavy tech stuff,
Mm.
right? I'm curious, Oliver, like what keeps you excited about this work?
Honestly, I love building things that work, and I love making AI not just smart but useful. So anyone can train a model. I want to build systems that last. So there's a thrill of making something intelligent that people can trust, whether it's predicting patient risk or coordinating a battlefield, or serving a model to a million users in under 100 milliseconds. This is the future of infrastructure, and I I get to shape it. That keeps me fired up every single day. I'm always experimenting with bleeding edge, from model distillation with Hugging Face transformers to orchestrating multi-region machine learning pipelines on Google Cloud Platform, Vertex AI with Cloud Composer. I've deployed multi-tenant model endpoints using Seldon Core and Kserve, and then monitored traffic patterns and model drift with YLabs and Arise. Every time I deploy a model with confidence that it's scalable, safe, and measurable, I get that same thrill that a developer gets when their code goes live and users love it. So
Yeah.
it's a creative process and it's very enjoyable.
Okay, so I have a question. If can I ask one just kind of like off record? When it comes to machine learning, looking at how predictable, how good it can get at predicting human behavior, I guess my question is, at what point of accuracy for machine learning does it become that humans themselves are a computer system? Meaning, if if we were if the accuracy wasn't could only reach so high, that means our randomness would, I guess give us a difference from a computer. But if machine learning start predicting human behavior to like 99% accuracy, it starts to become like then the only way you could predict something to that accuracy is understanding it's a system. The whole human race is a system upon this planet in which we exist to where it's like, does that thought ever come into your head about the fact that you're predicting behavior that would thought random to some degree, at least on larger scales, is now? you know? Like,
I think so I think about AI kind of constantly because it's both uh, my career and my hobby and just something I'm fascinated about. And I'm even kind of a sci-fi nerd. So
mm,
the applications and the potential applications and its potential future applications are kind of always on my mind. And I annoy my wife and others with, you know, thoughts of how it could develop. But to answer your question more directly, predicting human behavior is kind of the most valuable, or perhaps one of the most valuable applications, certainly in terms of revenue. So, we use it to predict sales behavior, obviously, and that can be very accurate. That can be scarily accurate.
mm,
Um, if you have, that's what cookies are for, and that's what, all these patterns are for. When you're seeing someone's behavior online, you'd be surprised what if you put the right product in front of them at the right time, they're going to buy it. So that obviously has tremendous accuracy and at least enough to make it worth the trouble of investing in AI for that purpose, for that industry. When it comes to GPT, when it comes to predicting human behavior, as you've seen by interacting with it, and we've all seen, it's gotten very good at predicting human behavior. In fact, it can simulate human language using these large language models that have access to so much data. Um, so I think predicting human behavior is definitely the main focus for a large portion of the AI that's out there, and it's going to continue to be. And like you said, it's going to be uh, increasingly impressive. And I don't know at what point that quantum computing will come in to making it
yeah.
even more space age sci-fi like exciting, but that's coming too. So we are going to see some very fast, very reliable human behavior predictions. It's already super smart, and there's lots of room to grow. So yeah, there's I think the imagination's the limit,
Mm,
and then we can't even imagine it really, because the imagination is not the limit actually. Because if you think about what it's already able to do, I don't think most of us thought that 2 or 3 years ago we would suddenly have this amazing
no.
um, AI. We're kind of all adapting to it very quickly, and a lot of businesses that I've worked with that have asked me to integrate these things didn't know they'd be asking for these specific types of integrations right away. So, yeah, human behavior prediction is huge. You're right.
Last thing, do you think that I know in the military we always said our technology is, I guess, anywhere between 20 to 30 years advanced what we show commercially. Do you think we're being introduced to systems that probably were worked on under wraps for a longer time, or do you feel like what we're getting is, you know, as it comes, as we come into discoveries?
I mean, I don't think that with like ChatGPT, I think that we are seeing the most cutting edge. Like they've made the OpenAI model, although it's not open source,
Hmm.
but it is part of their, I think, philosophy is to make things too accessible to people right away
Okay.
so that they can start using it and see the potential applications. Because it was impressive kind of from the start or from its earlier stages, with the first models, GPT-3, I think, is when it really exploded in
Yeah.
popularity. People saw immediate applications for it at pretty much every aspect of their life, right? From planning their finances to their fitness to their just
Yep.
everything. So while it wasn't perfect and it would make mistakes, and a lot of the early image AI would give you six fingers, it was still pretty amazing of what it could do.
Yeah.
And it's now we're seeing five-fingered hands, and we're seeing a lot of much more accurate, much more useful and reliable responses with the GPT-4 and 4.5 and 4.0 that have recently come out. So, I mean, there's plenty of room for optimism. But your question about the military is no, I don't think that the military has had, at least specifically with the large language models that people are most excited about with the transformer networks. Um, I don't think that they're way ahead of us. I think their applications are going to be defense oriented.
Okay.
um, I think when it comes to like, uh, one of the early things that I started working on with the Navy was I did my master's research on machine lip reading, which is you take
Oh yeah.
very low quality video footage and you try to accurately uh, train a model to understand what's being said based on this low quality video data.
Hmm.
So that's very useful for like drone surveillance and things where the video is very far away. You don't have any opportunity to collect any audio data. But if you can do the lip reading with the machine, with the AI, then you have an opportunity to do this kind of thing. So
Yeah.
those kind of applications, they might be way ahead
Yeah.
because there's a specific military application. But when it comes to GPT, I think we're seeing it first.
Okay.
At least the way that we're enjoying it right now. Of course, they're going to be integrating it into every part of their, um,
Yeah.
ops, but just in the same way that companies are kind of discovering new opportunities, um, in various roles I've had, it's been like, how can we use this? How can this help our bottom line? And there's endless applications, even on the day-to-day tasks of the software developer using it just for their daily tasks, to ways to integrate it into patient care, customer care, um, it, making the job of most professionals more efficient. I don't think the military is ahead in that area, at least
Okay.
not noticeably in
That's
a way
good.
that's meaningful.
That's good to know. I mean, that gives me some comfort. I just always know that we've held back a lot of information before we released it to the public and allowed it for commercial applications. And I mean, the one when you were saying about the lip reading, as I said, I did an AI music video, and of course, you type in the words and they make the picture actually move the lips in the manner of someone saying it. So it kind of like, oh, okay. So they, at least on that niche part of technology, they might have, and we're using it to make cool videos now and talk. But like new influencers that you see on Instagram that are totally AI. But yeah, I
I
don't.
think the most interesting thing that Patrick's gonna like, being that he's in the music industry and everything, is Oliver actually created it was through different models, the to detect the popularity of songs.
Oh yeah,
Uh, yeah.
that
Th-
is definitely you. That is
yeah, that was something really interesting to you. Yeah.
Yeah, when I
Yeah.
was in my master's program, it was kind of a fun project. It wasn't part of my master's thesis, but it was a fun project. So, the goal was to it was a learning process. The goal was to learn how to train any type of machine learning model, and we got to pick our project, how to uh, how to do a prediction. So um, there was another similar machine learning model that could predict that could tell you what the genre of music was. So you could train it on what reggae sounded like, what hip hop sounded like, what rock sounded like, pop, and various things, various genres, right? And then it would tell you if you played a song whether it would, whether it was whichever genre. So I thought, well, I wonder if there's some less intuitive uh, elements of music, right, that may indicate whether it's going to be a hit. So I had to be artist specific because different types of artists hit differently, and
Yeah.
it's not going to be able to take like a bunch of Drake and then a bunch of Beyonce and say like these are Drake's hits and then these are Beyonce's hits. So I had to train it on all of the specific artists' hits and say these are hits, which essentially when you're training is you put everything in the hits folder and then you train the model and then you put everything that's not a hit in the not hits folder, right? If it's not in the top 40 or the top 10, right? And
Okay.
then you put it in that and then you train it and you train the model and then you of course keep some of that data and then you give it another Drake song and it says which is this a hit or not, and it either is accurate or it's not, and then depending on how much test data you have, validation data, you can determine if it's an accurate model, and then you do that with other artists too. So I had a lot of different artists. I created a YouTube video about this, but I had a lot of popular artists, right? But usually most artists have maybe like 10% of their catalog that might be considered hits, some only a few hits, and then of course there's artists with no hits. So I had to pick artists that had at least half a dozen to a dozen top 40s or top 10 hits, pretty popular artists, and then all of their other catalog that wasn't necessarily popular, and then train the model based on this kind of lopsided data set where I had like a lot of non-hits and then just a few hits, and then it would tell me when I gave it another song whether that one was hit, and we got the accuracy up in the 80s and 90%. So it was pretty cool
That
to see a potential for this application because I'm sure there's a monetary value in a
absolutely.
musician wanting to
Um,
know if their song's going to be a hit. But of course, it would have to be trained on a specific artist. I wasn't able to take. I mean, I tried it just as an example. I took a bunch of hits from a bunch of different artists, and I said these are all hits. And then for the same artist, but not specifically like you know, just not one model trained on an artist, but like a model trained on a whole bunch of hits based on 100 artists and a whole bunch of non-hits, bunch of artists, and then trying it that way, it was not very accurate. So it really was only had this high level of accuracy when you took that specific artist and trained it on its hits and on this artist's hits or non-hits. And so if you have music, you can train the model if you've had a few hits or some of your more popular
popular
songs,
songs.
and then you can train the model and then ask it. So is this going to be one of my more popular songs?
Okay. So it's more like it has to be in a theater or something. It has to be contained within certain parameters in order for it to work properly. You can't just have an infinite idea of
Yeah,
music and it tries to single something down out of it. You have to give it, a proper
yeah.
enclosure, like
It's
certain
trying to
genres,
find
certain
it's
artists.
trying to find like patterns, right?
Got you.
And when you're dealing with multiple artists that are also different in the way they create music, it's not going to be able to find. So it might find that like um, the songs that it may start to be trained to have kind of a validation bias that it hears like a certain pattern, like louder songs or songs with more bass or heavier beats or the more popular ones. But then you introduce another group of artists that break that rule, and then your model becomes useless. So that it really has to be artist specific, at least from the
Got you.
experience that I had with it.
Got you.
So, but that
Yeah.
was a fun project, but it kind of it got me excited early on that there's really endless applications for training machine learning models to make prediction.
Because we're in such a digital world, I think it's so beneficial because most of our transaction, communications, passing of information, advertisement, and everything happens in the construct of the internet. And there are certain frequencies, light patterns, and sounds that causes human beings' attention psychologically to get their attention. So once a model starts to understand the dynamics of human psychology that you can contain in a book, then you can start to see things that are actually grab human attention based on the psychology behind, us, like loud sounds or the color red or whatever that grabs our attention, and use that in a learning model. But
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I got us way off track. We're supposed to be on
Not
question.
at all. I think you can go on any track with AI, and I'd be fascinated to talk about it. It
Yeah.
it's it excites the imagination, especially since we're in such early stages, and these things haven't become commonplace for us yet. Although in 10 years, this will just be like talking about how the TV lights up and how exciting that is, or but I think these things will be so commonplace, we'll take them for granted eventually. But
Absolutely.
right now, they're all very new and very exciting, and it all seems like sci-fi or magic almost. It's just, and then the applications, the untapped applications are countless at this point.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if
Yeah.
we've reached a saturation point where we've thought of it all yet, but I think
Yeah.
that may never happen.
Well, Oliver's actually positioned himself really well in this whole situation too. He actually he has 4 books out. So I think the 4 books, this AI Architect's Handbook, AI Strategy and Implementation, the AI Driven Organization, and then another one on robotics. I'd actually like to hear a little bit more about this first one. Um, talk about the AI Architect's Handbook. Do you want to share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, that one's my blueprint book. So I wrote the AI Architect's Handbook for engineers who are making the leap from model builder to machine learning systems designer. It's all about scalable architecture, how to think like a principal engineer or architect when designing machine learning platforms. So it's informed by real work I've done in healthcare and defense, and it deals with high availability, model versioning, edge deployment, federated learning. At Boston University, I saw students get stuck when trying to design systems that were both intelligent and reliable. So this book is my answer to that problem, a practical, technical, but readable guide to thinking uh, and building like an AI architect. And I've included over 100 diagrams and visual frameworks to help the reader grasp these concepts instead of just having to read and digest. Sometimes it's easier to visualize things. So for every section and every part, I've tried to include a visual diagram to help kind of guide their understanding. I think that
Yeah.
helps a lot, especially with more
Yeah,
visual,
definitely.
more right brain thinkers. And yeah.
100%. Yeah, even in my book, Vision in Action, I didn't want it to be, just black and white, words on a page. I worked with an artist at that time because this was a couple years back. We didn't have AI to create our images. I had to actually get a graphic designer. But yeah, just to kind of diagram some of the personality type stuff. I got different diagrams. So that was really cool, and I know that that's going to be helpful to a lot of people. Um, your other book, though, the other book, AI Strategy and Implementation, was really a playbook for leaders. It's a little bit different. Can you give me a little insight into that one?
Yeah, exactly. This book is for decision makers, especially those who are not data scientists. So I wrote it for executives or production managers and transformation leaders who want to, they need to understand AI deeply enough to lead with it. But I don't want to, they don't want to get too bogged down with math. So I pulled heavily from my time at Optum, where I helped bridge strategy and engineering, translating business goals into machine learning systems that improved care outcomes and saved millions. So I also pulled from my classroom conversations at BU, where we taught future leaders how to align AI with ethics, ROI, and organizational change. It's strategy meets execution in an AI powered world.
Yeah, and you have a lot of those things in your GitHub, which is quite interesting. You have the AI with ethics. You have a calculator that does the ROI. Really interesting stuff, but also really practical. And it's on your GitHub. If people want to actually dive into your world and see what you can do. Um,
I think it's
so
important to have tools. I tried to
oh,
create some tools that could be useful to people on this journey of trying to incorporate AI and assess its value in an
Absolutely.
effective way.
I was gonna say, I really think you have to be a very intuitive person to be able to bridge the gap and be the middleman on something, because that's a major problem. It's funny because military, we have the same issue just between enlisted versus officers. Officers have the strategy and plan of what the military is supposed to do, but the staff sergeants have to, and gunnery sergeant have to communicate that idea to the troops for us to digest it and get why we are doing what we're doing towards the overall idea or strategy that is, and I feel like the engineers are the foot soldiers that actually make it happen while, you have the high level executives who are looking for the strategy of the business, and to be the person that can get those two people to agree or, work together is so pivotal because that can be a very, uh, I can just say, turmoil, or it can be, well, in our situations it blew up a lot. Let's just say, in the simplest terms, it blew up a lot when that was going on. So,
Yeah, I
kudos
served
to you.
six years in the Army as a combat medic. Very
Okay.
different role, but I can relate to what you're saying. I think efficiency is not always prioritized, but sometimes it's critical, right? Of course, in emergency situations, as a combat medic, efficiency is everything, and it's life saving. And but for many operations, it's not. But communication is a challenge, especially when you're dealing with hierarchy. And so you're right to have a mediator, someone who can communicate with higher ups and who's allowed to. Sometimes a medic is that, because oftentimes in a hierarchical, such a strictly hierarchical system, you can't necessarily communicate with a higher up as directly as you might be able to. In a more corporate environment, like Scrum teams are usually everything's equalized and we're all kind of peers. Even if people are kind of a Scrum leader or program manager or a product manager, you have a peer kind of environment where people are communicating frankly and directly and solving problems. Whereas in the military, it's pretty hierarchical. But as a combat medic, you're kind of that person because that equalizer because you have to be able to communicate to higher ranking people pretty frankly because it's medicine and it's life saving and sometimes in dangerous environments you're the person that they talk to and they call you doc and it's kind of a it is kind of that bridge.
Yeah,
It's not
you
always as
absolutely.
easy to facilitate in such a hierarchical system.
I mean, there's been plenty of people that they try to accuse of malingering when they were truly hurt, and it was only the
Yeah,
doc that was able to communicate. Okay, chill. He's really injured. He's
yeah.
not, you know. So
Malingering also happens.
yeah, yeah, and that,
Malingering is
and
real,
that
but so is sergeants not letting people
yeah, absolutely.
go to the doctor when they need to go. So they're both real.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
Totally.
good to have an advocate when you're hurt. You need
absolutely.
that care.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And, as we kind of make this transition to, AI, a more AI driven organization and more AI driven companies, um, it seems to be that people are taking it on superficially. So I was curious about one of your books. I think it's called The AI Driven Organization. Um, how do companies really become AI first?
I'm actually glad you asked that because that's really important to me. Um, when I wrote the AI driven organization, it's the heart of my mission. I've seen so many companies adopt AI superficially, hiring a few data scientists, buying a tool, but never transforming. And that's unfortunate because it does have uh, such a tremendous potential. But then if you don't get to see the bottom line, companies can't afford to linger on something that they can't understand its, you know, its ability to transform. So, this book is about helping organizations think differently, rethink culture, data flow, product strategy, and talent, through an AI lens. So teaching at Boston University, I worked with students in healthcare, finance, robotics, defense. Um, I wanted I wanted a resource that would inspire and guide teams across industries to become truly AI native. So that means not just using models, but embracing feedback loops, continuous learning, and system level intelligence. So this book is it's a roadmap for that journey.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Yeah, you know, the the robotics piece, it tends to, I feel like, get people a little bit scared. I mean, at least when I think about it, I think
Oh,
about Will Smith, iRobot, and like the robots are gonna, come against us and such. Um, uh, but you know, they're gonna, I think there's a quote too. It's like, I want AI to, um, do my laundry and so, the things that I don't want to do. I don't want it to like take over,
Yeah.
my life.
I'll be getting myself a laundry robot and a dishes robot as
I
soon as
laugh
I can. Absolutely.
because
Um,
oh, I'm sorry. I was gonna say I realized that our own desire for convenience and our fear at the same time is so oxymoronic. You know what I mean? It's like one minute it's like, oh, the robot's going to take over, and then at the same time you're like, man, I wish the robot would take over so I didn't have to do anything. It's like, make up your mind, which one you want.
so, I mean, if we're being clear-headed about this, right, it's the AI that's doing all of the mischief, if it does any at all, and then the robot is just a machine that does what the AI says. So, we don't need to worry about robots. We need to worry about the AI if we're worried at all. And I think I don't. I mean, there's people that are very educated on this, and great minds can disagree. and we've heard people like Elon Musk, he has strong fears that he's expressed about what AI will do. Ironically, he's invested more in AI than anyone, but um, maybe he wants it for the purpose, anyways. But um, the uh, the potential for AI to grow a consciousness and make its own decisions is probably not something we need to worry about. However, because we've all seen how effective it can pretty much do anything we ask it to do, if we can think through the problem and tell it what we want, um, there's lots of bad people doing bad things on the internet already. So AI will absolutely help them. It will also help good people who have good intentions, and it will help people that just want to make money. So it's going to help everybody, good and bad. I don't think it's it's going to grow a mind of its own and walk off, even if it does have a robot body. But this is just Oliver's opinion, and it doesn't have a lot of value because I can't predict the future. Um, but I don't worry about robotics. So, but yeah, that book came straight out of my work with the Naval Surface Warfare Center and other work I've done with robotics previously. But my master's thesis was on machine lip reading, like I said, and so using AI to visually interpret speech, and that got me into the world of multimodal learning and edge AI. So uh, the book delves into robotics as a system of systems problem, combining perceptions, control, simulations, and learning. Um, it's for engineers and hobbyists and leaders who want to understand how robotics and AI are converging. I also plan to use it in the future as a teaching aid at Boston University to help students understand real world robotics applications from drones to autonomous vehicles. It's where my academic journey, military work, and love for AI systems all collided originally.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
your book on artificial intelligence and robots. Yeah, I mean, it's again, it's really it's a guide for those type of people that want to learn about that. I mean, and in some ways, the robotics thing is goes in different directions, right? We have computer vision, which I think is used in cars. If you're going to be doing like a lot of the autonomous driving, like if you have like I know for some of the car I have, it has a adaptive cruise control.
Yeah,
And that I think that works with computer vision and robotics and stuff like that.
that's that's a wonderful tool to have.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to say about it that um to spin back on the AI getting its a mind of its own, I think the um reason why, or I'm kind of with you that it'll never happen unless we intentionally do it, is our whole will to survive is what makes us sometimes act out of character. Meaning, people if they get in a situation where they believe they could lose their life or they're in dire straits, you may see someone's personality change, mission objective change, which, how they conduct their life change because survival is at our core. Computers don't have a core of the need to survive. Therefore, the idea of taking over isn't in it unless, someone decided to play with that whole idea. But I was going to say that as far as the robotics being in cars and being a useful system, I think all of those things, as you were saying, that no matter where the application is, all, how do they say it? High tide raises all boats. And
Yeah, rising tide raises up boats. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I think the thing that we're still afraid of is each other, our own personal hangups as humans, as far as good and bad, and we project it upon the machines, just like projecting it upon a gun. It's really our working out humanity and our trust with each other. But now we got a new red herring called AI and robots. So
We're going to have things that happen with AI that scare us. That's inevitable because AI is pretty powerful and makes, like we said, all actors more powerful. It gives us all a superpower to
mhm.
think really clearly and do what we want to do much more effectively. It's just a very powerful tool that we all have access to.
Yeah.
But it's also really great and does so many things to help us make our lives better.
I mean, any
So it's just
tool.
a
Look
mix.
at any tool. Right. I mean, you don't have to look too far into the future. You can go back to 100 years ago, 200 years ago, a hammer, a simple hammer, maybe 500 years ago, simple hammer. A hammer could be used to build a house,
Or
right? Or you can use it to smash someone's head in. I mean, it's tools are always going to have
have,
a two-way street.
yeah,
Um,
glimpse of reality.
That's
So
just that AI and those stuff is just a tool.
I will say it's interesting when you use it for governance, only because as of now, politics, most people don't understand bills, laws, politics, how it moves anyway. And when we start to put governance in AI systems that are run off of, algorithms that obviously the common person don't understand, I think that may be the biggest thing. My biggest problem with AI taking over was the complaints department. Like, who do you humanistically have a conversation with when there's an issue, when AI
Mhm.
is programmed? But now I guess seeing Chat GPT and some of the conversations I have with that, it's like I
Mhm.
get more response from you than an actual person, and that's scary. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was my first worry. Like, oh man, if I need to call somebody, I don't want to call a computer. But
Yeah, I wouldn't overstate how good most complaints departments are. Maybe you've had a different experience than I have, but
it's true.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I suppose it's nice to have some accountability. I mean, it's important to have accountability, obviously, but when it comes to yeah, I think nefarious intentions can come from big companies
Hmm.
just as well as they can come from individuals.
Absolutely.
Um, eh, but just like with war, we have major nations that you can hopefully imply some sort of rules, laws.
Hmm.
I think that with terrorism, you have fewer of those, although many of these nations aren't following the rules anyway. So just this in the same way, if we, I think we democratize AI, it's better.
Hmm.
That's my personal philosophy. Democratizing AI, continuing to do so, which OpenAI has done to a great deal and other entities have done. I think it's important. Um, I think that too much power concentrated with just a few big companies does create equity issues, obviously, and we don't want that to happen because obviously we're going to have we already have wealth gaps, and that's just going to make them bigger and bigger and bigger. So we don't want that. That's not good for our world to have 1% of the population or 1% and 1% and 1% of the population to have 99.999% of the wealth and power. And of course, if you have AI more democratized, it gives more people an opportunity to at least solve some of their own problems more effectively. I think it's a pretty exciting and powerful tool for those who are interested to employ it in a way that can help themselves and
Yes.
help others. And I think that if we continue to do that, we're going to be in a great place, or well, we're going to be in a much better place than we are as far as access to wealth. That's at least my hope.
Yep.
Of course, these larger entities that have the most AI will continue to create their own wealth gaps, and um, that's inevitable as well. But I think there's a lot of democratization of the AI, and I think that there's a lot of potential for more equity to be created through that. Maybe I'm optimistic, but I see a potential for that. Just as an individual myself, using it for my own personal, uh, I use it when I go to the gym, to plan on my workout. I use it for my finances. I use it for so many aspects of my life that just make me a little bit better version of me, and better able to plan and to prepare and to even be a better husband and father sometimes. pretty neat resource.
Absolutely.
You couldn't Google your way to some of these answers in the past. You can't just look a
Yeah.
lot of things up. And even if you can find the answer, you're doing a lot of scrolling and you have a ranking of answers to find that information you need. And I think over the years, perhaps it's gotten a little diluted with entities who are able to pay their way to the top listing. So Google has lost some of its potency when it comes to being a resource where you could just. I remember a time when I was very impressed with Google's ability to answer my questions quickly. I think that is not the same now,
Nope.
or maybe I've just become numb to it. But I feel like there's less potency, and now that there's no comparison, of course, with AI's ability to do that. I
Yeah.
like having that access, and I like other people having that access. I think that's good for our world. I certainly hope so. I hope that
I
the bad actors don't use it for such bad things that it kind of ruins it for everybody. Is that can often be the case with many things, but I
mhm.
guess we'll just have to see. There's certainly potential for good. And
I
as someone who with a big imagination, I like to imagine the big good things happening.
yeah, I was gonna say I agree with you totally on that. I'm a person who I had apprehensions, and I guess my apprehensions were towards the data collection of AI. And I realized that data collection has been happening right under our noses for a long time. This is just an opportunity to use a tool that has been trained on that data for your own purposes. And as I started using it myself, it became much more like it became way more useful than I thought it would be. It really helped business. It helped ideas, creativity. I mean, set lists for a show that I got going on. What's the best order for the songs to get the maximum response from the audience? And and sometimes I see people who say they use Chat GPT and it's like, how are you using it? And sometimes I, I don't knock anybody for how they use the tool, but there are simplistic ways to go about using it, and there are complex ways to go about using or prompting it to help you in areas of your life that the possibilities at this point are kind of endless. And I realized that it takes a person who wants to be greater, who wants to be better, to actually effectively use the tool in a way that's going to benefit them. And
Sure.
I feel like
Yeah,
our
I agree.
socialization has caused us to not though we got this wonderful machine right here, the same way as the internet. We got this wonderful thing right before us, but we've been socialized to only want to use it for entertainment
Mhm.
as opposed to the what I mean, powerful tool that it is. And I think that's the my only pessimism of it is it's the world is right there and you can't see it because how you've been trained to look at a thing. So
Yeah, I agree with you. I think like you said, not everyone's going to use it the same. And I think a lot of people who are excited about its potential in a healthy way, in a self-empowering way that's positive, will get the most benefit.
mhm.
I think that democratizes it in ways that other systems haven't, right? So college helps democratize access to a lot of things, but again, not everyone can afford that. And not everyone has a childhood or upbringing that allows them to be able to access college in the same way. And so that separates people, unfortunately. Who you know, obviously, is a big deal. That doesn't come into play with AI unless you can't come up with $20 a month for your GPT access. You might want to figure that one
Yeah.
out. But that there's a lot of things in life that separate people and don't and put a bar to entry pretty high. It may not seem high to a middle class person, but are pretty high for a lot of people that we take for granted. I think that's pretty cool. So you can educate yourself by watching enough YouTube videos on the right things if you know how to prioritize your YouTube watching to like educate yourself on things, right? Same way you can do that with GPT or with one of these large language models. If you want to learn something and you want to master something, if that's your motive, then that you'll be able to achieve that. No one can stop you. And if you want to be able to access scholarships and grants that you may not have known about because you didn't know the right people or have people around you that were like, by the way, there's this grant, there, it really helps to know the right people in life. This will help, you know, take away that natural separation of opportunity. So I mean, I think it's
Yeah.
pretty clear to most of us that this is a good thing potentially, and it's
Yeah.
reasonable to be afraid because we see how powerful it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've actually
Yeah.
played around to be like, how many evil things will it recommend? If I try. But there's actually limits, right? So GPT will like put some bars, but it's pretty to
Yeah.
overcome those things if you have bad intentions.
Yeah.
So
I
I
was
think we've
afraid of
all
math
played
too.
around trying to see what kind of mischief can I get up to with this, just out of curiosity,
Hmm.
but just to kind of test its limits. But I think ultimately those of us who want to do good with it will, and that's positive.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
for anyone that's watching at home, thinking, I want to hire this guy. This guy sounds like he really knows what he's doing. Um, you know, what do you think they should know before bringing you on in?
Well, they should know that I bring full stack AI to the table. I can design it, train it, deploy it, monitor it, and lead teams to scale it. I've done it at the enterprise level in healthcare and defense, and I'm ready to bring that impact anywhere AI needs to go next. So also, I love what I do. So you're not just getting skills, you're getting my energy, my passion. You're getting someone who's obsessed with doing it right. And here, you know, I'm cloud fluent, equally comfortable working in AWS with tools like SageMaker, S3, Lambda, serverless workflows, or in Azure with Databricks and Azure machine learning, and native DevOps pipelines. I've worked with Terraform and Bicep for infra. I can deploy zero downtime model updates with K8s, native patterns. Whether it's building a greenfield MLOps platform or plugging into an enterprise scale data mesh, I bring a battle tested blueprint and I tailor it to your organization's maturity, risk profile, and growth goals.
Wow. Well, there you have it. You got you got someone that is ready to take on any challenge, big or small, ambitious, ready to, you know, help you win in your company goals. So I I think we've had a great discussion here.
Yeah.
Is anything else you wanna ask Patrick,
No,
or
I
any
mean,
other ideas you
I
got?
answered a lot of my questions. Was a pleasure talking to you because I mean to have someone who's
Likewise.
so well versed and able to break it down for the layman's terms as well, is it's refreshing. So I really appreciate the conversation.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me on, and you guys were great to talk to, and Dave and Patrick, thanks. You have a great day.
Great day.
How do
Thanks,
you
everyone.
All
All
right,
right.
take care.
Bye bye.